Datuk Amat Speaker, saya mohon mencadangkan supaya rang undang-undang bertajuk suatu ordinan bagi menggunakan sejumlah wang daripada kumpulan wang disatukan untuk perkhidmatan bagi tahun 2019 dan bagi membentukkan wang itu untuk perkhidmatan tahun itu dibaca bagi kali kedua. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Datuk Amat Speaker, saya ingin merapatkan rasa syukur setinggi-tingginya kehadap Allah Subhanahu Wa Taala kerana dengan izinnya saya berpeluang untuk membentangkan bajet negeri Sarawak tahun 2019 dalam Dewan yang mulia ini. Segala hasrat dan tujuan yang ini kita capai dapat dilaksanakan mudah-mudahan dengan jayanya. Datuk Amat Speaker, allow me to update this August House on the latest overall economic performance for 2018 and the outlook for 2019. Global economic performance in 2018 and outlook for 2019. Global economic growth has been robust in 2018 but less synchronized. The International Monetary Fund, IMF, in its latest World Economic Outlook, published in October 2018, projected that the world economy to grow at 3.7% for 2018, and it is expected to grow at the same pace for 2019. Growth appears to have peaked in some major economies owing to escalating trade tension, rising oil prices, and tightening financial conditions. Growth in the emerging and developing countries is expected to remain uneven. Advanced economies is anticipated to slow down in growth from 2.4% in 2018 to 2.1% in 2019. The growth in the United States, though supported by fiscal stimulus and robust private demand growth, is expected to slow down from 2.9% in 2018 to 2.5% in 2019. The growth in the euro area is also forecasted to slow down from 2% in 2018 to 1.9% in 2019, as higher oil prices would continue to weigh on consumption, coupled with tighter financial conditions and increase in borrowing costs on investments. In Japan, growth is projected to slow down from 1.1% in 2018 to 0.9% in 2019, as private consumption and investment are anticipated to be more subdued. Emerging and developing economies are expected to sustain their growth of 4.7% for 2018 into 2019, supported by higher commodity prices. Growth in China is projected to moderate from 6.6% in 2018 to 6.2% in 2019, with the tightening of its financial sector, softening of external demand, and the challenges brought about by the trade war. India's economy is expected to accelerate slightly from 7.3% in 2018 to 7.4% in 2019. This is largely due to the deregulation and steady improvement in economic freedom. Growth in world trade is expected to soften to 0.2% in 2018 as trade tension between China and United States continue to escalate, undermining confidence in businesses and financial markets. Inflation has risen in both advanced and emerging market economies due to higher fuel prices. Datuk Mas Speaker, national economic performance in 2018 and prospect for 2019. Our national economy is expected to register a softer growth in 2018 after experiencing a slower expansion of 4.9% in the first half of 2018. Private sector activity remained the driver of growth as both private consumption and private investment expanded by 7.4% and 3.3% respectively in the first half of 2018. Growth in private consumption was largely due to continued strength in wage and employment, as well as higher consumer sentiments and increased household spending following the 3-month tax holiday arising from zero rating of GST. Growth in private investment was supported by capital spending in the services and manufacturing sectors. Meanwhile, public expenditure was decelerated, attributed to lower public consumption and public investment in the first half of 2018. Public consumption grew only 1.8%, while public investment contracted by 5.4% as a result of lower capital spending by public corporations and a few ongoing large-scale projects nearing completion. Malaysia's gross export rose by 7% for the first half of 2018, driven largely by sustained external demand for semiconductor. On the supply side, expansion continued, notably in the services and manufacturing sectors for the first half of this year. The services sector grew at 6.5%, particularly in the wholesale and retail trade, as well as finance and insurance subsectors arising from increased household spending. The manufacturing sector grew at 5.1%, with improvement in the exports, particularly in the electronics and electrical cluster. Based on the 2019 national budget, the national economy is expected to continue to grow healthily at 4.9% in 2019, despite the global economic uncertainties. Datuk Mas Speaker, state economic performance in 2018 and the prospect for 2019. The state economy experienced lower growth in the first half of 2018. Nevertheless, the major economic sectors, notably the services sector, remain supportive to the economic growth that could bring a growth of 4.6% for the whole of 2018. Supply side, the services sector is projected to grow by 6.4% in 2018, supported by the wholesale and retail trade subsector, as the household spending increased, supported by the zero rating of the GST from June to August this year. The higher lending activity also supported growth of the finance and insurance subsector. The manufacturing sector is estimated to grow by 3.5% in 2018. For the first 7 months of 2018, production of LNG slowed down in tandem with the slowdown in demand. On the other hand, production of electronics and electrical products continued to strengthen. With the escalating global trade tensions, some moderation in growth in the manufacturing sector is expected in 2019. The mining sector is expected to expand at a more modest rate of 2.6% in 2018, supported by an increase in output production. Demand for crude oil remains strong, and oil price has gone up to an average of USD $75 per barrel, following the agreement on reduction on crude oil production output by the Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries, Openg. With this positive trend for crude oil price, the mining sector is anticipated to remain a significant contributor to the state economy for 2019. The agriculture sector is expected to grow modestly at 1.8% in 2018. Production of crude palm oil contracted by 2.4% in the first 7 months of the year, with a decline in both the oil extraction rate and yield in fresh fruit bunch, FFB. However, a stronger growth for agriculture is expected. Demand for crude oil remains strong, and oil price has gone up to an average of USD $75 per barrel, following the agreement on reduction on crude oil production output by the Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries, Openg. With this positive trend for crude oil price, the mining sector is anticipated to remain a significant contributor to the state economy for 2019. The agriculture sector is expected to grow modestly at 1.8% in 2018. Production of crude palm oil contracted by 2.4% in the first 7 months of the year, with a decline in both the oil extraction rate and yield in fresh fruit bunch, FFB. However, a stronger growth for agriculture is anticipated in the second half of 2018 and is expected to sustain into 2019 with signs of improvement in the production of crude palm oil. Growth in the construction sector is expected to remain strong at 5.1% in 2018, underpinned by the continuation in the implementation of projects under the 11 National Plan, particularly infrastructure projects, rural transformation programs, rural electricity supply, and rural water supply projects at stressed areas, as well as property development. The effort to accelerate the implementation of infrastructure development in the state will continue to bring further growth to the construction sector in 2019. Datuk Ahmad Speaker, the demand side. On the demand side, for the first 7 months of 2018, the state experienced a narrowing total balance of trade. Growth in export contracted by 1.6%, totaling 53.6 billion ringgit, attributing to the drop in export of palm oil and LNG, signaling slower external demand. The higher crude petroleum export partially offset further drop in the total export. During the same period, import increased by 7.1% to 24.9 billion ringgit, narrowing the total balance of trade to 28.7 billion ringgit. Domestic demand from both consumption and investment are expected to grow encouragingly this year. Public consumption is anticipated to grow by 4.7% in 2018 due to spending on emoluments and supplies and services. Private consumption is forecasted to grow higher by 5.1% in 2018, supported by robust spending activities attributed partly to the zero rating of the GST, coupled with continued strength in income and employment. Private investment is expected to moderate to 5.2% in 2018, underpinned by positive business sentiment. In the first half of 2018, a total of 121.3 million ringgit investment was approved. On public investment, a growth of 3.3% is expected in 2018, following the intensified effort by the state government to develop more infrastructures, which include, among others, the implementation of road network, improvement of utilities coverage and services, related projects such as public education and healthcare, with due emphasis given to the rural areas. Despite our effort, the federal government decision for expenditure rationalization may affect expansion of public investment in 2019. Datuk Ahmad Speaker, the volatility created by the trade tension between China and the United States will weigh on Sarawak, as our economy is strongly linked to the global markets. In addition, the current restructuring of the Malaysian economy, particularly in the cutting of spending by the federal government, would likely impact the economic growth of the state. However, the state government is ready to provide allocation to finance priority, high impact and people-centric projects. It is expected that with injection of higher public investment would lift the state economic growth. Hence, the state economy is projected to grow at 5% in 2019. Datuk Ahmad Speaker, financial performance of the state in 2018. Before I present the proposed 2019 budget, I would like to update this August House on the state financial performance of 2018. Revenue 2018. The total revenue of the state for 2018 is anticipated to surpass the original estimate of 5.525 billion ringgit. Based on the revenue collection for the period ended 31st October 2018 of 5.758 billion, the estimated revenue for this year is revised to 6.966 billion, which is 1.441 billion or 26.1% higher than the original estimates. The expected higher revenue is mainly attributed to the increase in 1. Dividend of 1.339 billion or 177% from 755 million to 2.094 billion. 2. Cash compensation in lieu of oil and gas rights of 176 million ringgit or 11% from 1.577 billion to 1.73 billion ringgit. Number 3, 12% service charges for implementing federal projects of 77 million ringgit or 3.8% from 20 million to RM 96.8 million. And 4, mining royalty of 5 million ringgit or 19% from 27 million to 32 million ringgit. The overall increase in revenue, nevertheless, is set off slightly by the decrease in the revenue from timber, land, and sales tax on lottery. Datuk Ahmad Speaker, expenditures 2018, ordinary expenditure. The 2018 ordinary expenditure has been revised upwards from 5.781 billion ringgit to 8.429 billion ringgit, an increase of 2.648 billion or 46%. The revised ordinary expenditure was approved in the last Dewan Undangan Negeri sitting in July 2018. Up to 31st October 2018, an amount of 5.669 billion ringgit of ordinary expenditure or 67% has been expended. Out of the total amount of ordinary expenditure expended during the period, 1.780 billion ringgit was for operating expenditure, while the balance of 3.725 billion ringgit was appropriated to the development fund account. Development expenditure. The estimate for development expenditure for 2018 has been revised upwards from 5.745 billion to 9.317 billion ringgit, an increase of 3.572 billion or 62%. The revised development expenditure estimate has also been approved by Dewan Undangan Negeri in its sitting in July 2018. Out of this amount, 6.777 billion ringgit or 73% has been expended for the period ended 31st October 2018. Expenditure is expected to increase as development momentum continue to pick up towards the end of the year. Datuk Ahmad Speaker, State Budget Proposal for 2019. I would now like to table the 2019 State Budget Proposal. Key strategies of State Budget Proposal 2019. The 2019 State Budget Proposal adopts 6 key strategies aimed at generating a higher economic growth as well as achieving a more balanced economic development in the state. First, development bias and rural-focused budget. Datuk Ahmad Speaker, the state will continue with development bias and rural-focused budget to stimulate a higher level of economic activities and economic progress for the state. In the 2019 budget proposal, a substantial allocation of 9.073 billion ringgit is proposed for development expenditure. This represents about 76% of the total budget, while 24% or 2.841 billion ringgit is for operating expenditure. The state government is committed to intensify the implementation of programs and projects to further accelerate its development. Of the total development budget in 2019, 6.049 billion ringgit or 67% allocation will be provided for the development of rural areas. This provision is much higher as compared to 2.982 billion ringgit in 2017 and 3.062 billion ringgit in 2018. Our continual effort in rural development is vital towards achieving our development objective in opening up greater opportunities in the rural and more remote areas for the economic prosperity of our rural community. Second, the state development agenda. The state will continue with its socio-economic development and rural transformation agenda and will step up the implementation of the rural transformation budget in 2019. 6.049 billion ringgit or 67% allocation will be provided for the development of rural areas. This provision is much higher as compared to 2.982 billion ringgit in 2017 and 3.062 billion ringgit in 2018. Our continual effort in rural development is vital towards achieving our development objective in opening up greater opportunities in the rural and more remote areas for the economic prosperity of our rural community. Second, the state development agenda. The state will continue with its socio-economic development and rural transformation agenda and will step up the implementation of the rural transformation projects. Sufficient allocation will be allocated for the provision of basic facilities and amenities, including roads and bridges, rural water and electricity supplies, as well as other people-centric projects under the 11th Leisure Plan. In the light of this, the state will continue with its expansionary fiscal policy with a substantial development budget of 9.0733 billion in 2019, the biggest in the history of Sarawak. These development programs will definitely open up larger areas and creating more jobs and business opportunities, hence ensuring the state economy to become more vibrant and resilient, which eventually would bring economic prosperity to all Sarawakians. Third, digital economy as the key pillar of economic transformation. Datuk Speaker, digital economy will continue to be one of the key thrusts of the state future economy. The state government is committed to continue with the implementation of the Sarawak Digital Economy initiatives towards its vision in maximizing digital technology and digitalization to leapfrog the state economy. 4. Investment-driven economic growth. The state will continue to drive its economic development through further broadening investment that will create long-term sustainable economic growth. The investment will focus on higher value-added activities in the manufacturing, agriculture, and services sector, as well as resource-based industries such as oil and gas, agro-based, biotech, and forest-related industries that would contribute significantly to the economic growth of the state. In addition to the investment incentive given by the federal government, the state offers attractive incentive in terms of competitive price of land, low down payment for purchase of industrial land, and the provision of other facilities to ensure a conducive operating environment for the business community, particularly the startup. Fifth, private sector as the main engine of economic growth. The private sector has been the key driver of the Sarawak's economy. To facilitate private sector investment, the state will continue with the measures, among others, the provision of basic infrastructure to enhance connectivity, provision of basic amenities, and establishment of training institutions, as well as industrial estates. These are essential elements to enable private sector to flourish and contribute significantly to the state's economy. 6. Effectiveness of service delivery system. The state will continue to embark on the implementation of e-government to further enhance government service delivery, such as providing seamless and cashless payment gateway, as well as a more open data policy for value-added transactions. In this regard, adequate funding will be allocated for the enhancement of service delivery. Datuk Speaker, the 2019 budget proposal is indeed an extraordinary budget. This is because we are not only proposing a large development budget, but a record revenue for 2019, as we are tapping into a new major revenue stream. New sources of revenue stream. Datuk Speaker, in looking at the current reality and assessing the situation objectively, our state of Sarawak, despite 55 years of independence, is still lagging very, very far behind in its development as compared to that of Peninsular Malaysia. It is saddening indeed to see that the people of Sarawak have not been able to enjoy good quality of life with the necessary infrastructures and amenities, particularly our rural community. Sarawak, therefore, has not much choice but to be self-determining in its development effort, to undertake this massive work ahead of us. Such efforts include putting the state's infrastructure and basic amenities in place, be it roads and bridges, provision of water and electricity supplies, education, healthcare, and many more. These investments are capital intensive and hinges upon our ability to secure new sources of revenue stream to fund the implementation of our development agenda. In order for the state to determine and take control of its development agenda in a more concerted and self-determining manner, we ought to resort to a more radical solution. One of the solutions is to find a way to fund these much long-awaited infrastructure projects and basic amenities throughout the state. The usual method of funding the development through the annual allocation from both the state and federal budget is definitely not sufficient to support our development agenda. It is obvious that the yearly state development expenditure budget will need to be increased accordingly. This calls upon the state to look for new sources of revenue stream and at the same time tapping into available alternative funding. Datuk Amar Speaker, the state government, in its effort to expand its revenue base, has studied the provision in both the state and federal constitution and the relevant laws. As in Schedule 10, Part 5, Bracket 7 of the Federal Constitution, the state is allowed to impose state sales tax. Under the Sales Tax Ordinance 1998, the state imposes sales tax on crude palm oil, crude palm kernel oil, lottery tickets, and tires, and this has been a good source of state revenue. Datuk Amar Speaker, sales tax. After thorough analysis and careful consideration, the state government has decided to impose 5% sales tax on petroleum products. This will take effect on 1st January 2019. The sales tax will be levied on petroleum products, namely 1. Crude oil, 2. natural gas. 3. Liquefied natural gas. 4. Chemical-based fertilizer. And 5. Gas to liquid products. The revenue expected from the imposition of sales tax on these petroleum products is estimated to be at a sum of 3.897 billion in 2019. The higher revenue expected from this new revenue stream, together with the other source of revenue, as well as alternative funding, will help to support the state in its undertakings on major development programs and projects. With this, the state will be able to, 1. Accelerate its development to be at par with that of Peninsular Malaysia. 2. Narrow the disparity gap between the urban and the rural areas. 3. Improve the quality of life of the people, especially the rural community. And 4. Achieve the state vision to become a high-income state by the year 2030. This fiscal flexibility would enable the state to manage its financial resources effectively and thus allow us to speedily implement more rural infrastructure, water and electricity supplies, internet infrastructure, schools, clinics, as well as agricultural and other economic programs. We have a strong commitment to ensure that Sarawakian will no longer be deprived of the basic needs and the opportunity to a better life and a brighter future. Datuk Mas Speaker, revenue estimate for 2019. The total state revenue for 2019 is projected at 10.513 billion, an increase of 3.547 billion or 51% as compared to the revised revenue estimate of 6.966 billion for 2018. This will be to ensure that Sarawakian will no longer be deprived of the basic needs and the opportunity to a better life and a brighter future. Datuk Mas Speaker, revenue estimate for 2019. The total state revenue for 2019 is projected at 10.513 billion, an increase of 3.547 billion or 51% as compared to the revised revenue estimate of 6.966 billion for 2018. This will be the first time the state is expected to achieve such a high record revenue of more than 10 billion ringgit. This level of revenue is crucial to enable us to move forward with our development agenda for the benefit of all Sarawakians. The 2019 state revenue estimate is made up of A. Tax revenue, which is expected to be at 5.268 billion ringgit, or 50% of the total expected revenue in 2019, comprises the following. For 1, 4.462 billion from sales tax, of which 3.897 billion is from petroleum products, 445 million is generated from crude palm oil and crude palm kernel oil, 90 million is from lottery, while the remaining 30 million is from tire. 2. 474 million ringgit from forestry, of which 267 million is expected to be contributed by forest royalty, while 207 million ringgit is from timber premium. And 332 million from raw water and mining royalties, land rents, and others. B. Non-tax revenue, which is estimated at 4.997 billion, or about 48% of the total expected revenue. The non-tax revenue is mainly derived from the following major components. 1. 1.990 billion ringgit from cash compensation in lieu of oil and gas rights. 2. 1.500 billion ringgit from dividend income. 3. 1.006 billion ringgit from interest income. 4. 250 million ringgit from land premium. 5. 120 million from cash compensation in lieu of import and excise duties on petroleum products. And 6. 131 million from others, including licenses, service fees, permits, and rentals. C. Non-revenue receipt, which is expected to be at 9 million ringgit, mainly from forest liquidated damages, disposal of assets, and forest compounds. And D. Federal grants and reimbursement, which is expected to be at 239 million ringgit. Datuk Ahmad Speaker, ordinary expenditure estimate for 2019. A sum of 10.391 billion ringgit is proposed for ordinary expenditure for 2019. Out of this total allocation, 2.841 billion is for operating expenditure, which consists of 232 million for charge expenditure and 2.609 billion for recurrent expenditure. A sum of 7.550 billion ringgit is proposed to be appropriated to the statutory funds, of which 7.3 billion ringgit is for the contribution to development fund account to finance development programs and projects. The remaining 250 million is for appropriation to contingencies trust fund. The proposed allocation of 2.841 billion ringgit for operating expenditure next year is an increase of 212 million ringgit, which is about 8% over the revised expenditure of 2.629 billion for this year. Out of the 2.841 billion proposed for operating expenditure in 2019, 798 million or 28% for personnel emoluments. 2. 983 million or 35% for supplies and services. 3. 909 million or 32% for grants and fixed payments, including operating grants to statutory bodies and local authorities, servicing of public debts, and payment of gratuities, pensions, and scholarship. 4. 52 million for the procurement of assets, and 5. 99 million for other operating expenses. Datuk Ahmad Speaker, I am pleased to announce in this August House, the state government has decided to introduce a new policy whereby every newborn child, as long as they are Sarawakians, will be given one-off incentive of 1,000 ringgit, irrespective of ethnicity, religious belief, and social status. Of course, we also don't care what political affiliation they have. This incentive can only be withdrawn upon attaining the age of 18 and is meant for their further education or as capital to pursue their career. Datuk Ahmad Speaker, in 2019, we shall allocate 40 million ringgit based on the average of 40,000 babies born each year. Budget surplus for 2019. Taking into account of an estimated total revenue of 10.513 billion and a total proposed ordinary expenditure of 10.391 billion, the proposed 2019 budget is expected to generate a surplus of 122 million ringgit. A surplus budget would enable the state to continue building up its financial reserve. This is to ensure its healthy financial position and financial stability in the long run. Of course, there are speculations saying that I may touch the reserve. No reserve being touched. We know how to manage our economy, Datuk Ahmad Speaker. Datuk Ahmad Speaker, development expenditure estimate for 2019. Now, I would like to deliberate on the proposed development expenditure estimate for 2019. The estimate have taken into consideration, among others, 1. Priority, high impact, and people-centric projects, particularly in the rural areas. 2. Commitment to complete the implementation of the ongoing projects. 3. Capacity to implement projects during the year. And 4. Reprioritization of expenditure undertaken by the federal government to rationalize its fiscal position. For 2019, a sum of 9.073 billion is proposed to finance various programs and projects under the 11th National Plan of the state, including socio-economic and rural transformation initiative, the walkabout projects, as well as initiative under the digital economy. Of the total provision for development expenditure, 8.813 billion will be funded by the state, while 260 million is to be financed by the federal government through reimbursable loans and grants. Datuk Mas Speaker, distribution of development expenditure estimate for 2019. The proposed budget for the year is fairly distributed to ensure a sustainable and balanced development throughout the state, particularly between the urban and the rural areas. The state will continue to invest in a range of initiatives to ensure that the ongoing provision of vital services will benefit Sarawakian from all walks of life. The proposed 2019 development budget of 9.073 billion will focus on the following initiatives. 1. Accelerating development in the rural areas. To hasten the pace of rural development, a total sum of 6.049 billion is proposed in 2019 development budget, of which 2.350 billion is set aside for the implementation of the following projects. 1.535 billion for walkabout projects, 500 million ringgit for rural transformation projects, 243 million ringgit for minor rural projects, and 72 million for program penambahbaikan rumah miskin Sarawak. 2. Improving the connectivity of the state. The state is investing in more infrastructure projects, such as roads, bridges, and jetties, to improve its connectivity. For this purpose, a sum of 1.10 billion ringgit will be allocated for the implementation of various projects, among others: Jalan Sungai Bidut, Kampung Tutus, Kampung Sebedil, Kampung Bungan Kecil, jalan dari Sibujaya ke Jalan Kong Yit Kim, construction of Pasai Siong Hili Road, road construction from Marudi to Mulu via Long Terawan, Jalan Ulu Tubai menuju ke Mentawai Gunung Buddha, Jalan Pakan Ulu Jilau Ulu Kota Pakan Phase 2, Jalan Nanga Menuan Nangga Setepus, upgrading and rehabilitation of Belaga to Menjawah Road, Jalan Baru Tatau ke Kuala Tatau, Jalan Kampung Sebauh to Jalan Sebauh Hilir, Jalan Kampung Igan ke Rumah Panjang Sungai Ilas dan Kampung Sah ke Baau Batang Igan, Jalan Ratau Panjang Rasau di Batang Igan Pasar 1, Kampung Sebedil, Kampung Bungan Kecil, jalan dari Sibujaya ke Jalan Kong Yit Kim, construction of Pasai Siong Hili Road, road construction from Marudi to Mulu via Long Terawan, Jalan Ulu Tubai menuju ke Mentawai Gunung Buddha, Jalan Pakan Ulu Jilau Ulu Kota Pakan Phase 2, Jalan Nanga Menuan Nangga Setepus, upgrading and rehabilitation of Belaga to Menjawah Road, Jalan Baru Tatau ke Kuala Tatau, Jalan Kampung Sebauh tu Jalan Sebauh Hilir, Jalan Kampung Igan ke Rumah Panjang Sungai Ilas dan Kampung Sah ke Baau Batang Igan, Jalan Ratau Panjang Rasau di Batang Igan Pasar 1, Jalan Ijo Tuguyo Lempaung Batu Pesok Rantau Layang, Nanga Kesit Ulu Lamana Engkare Road Lubuk Antu, Jalan Kampung Tui ke Kampung Suri, Sungai Limbang Bridge, Sungai Bunut Number 2 Bridge and Connecting Roads, construction of Jambatan Long Lama Baram, Belen Cantilever Bridge over Batang Kamana at Sabau, and Marudi Bridge over Batang Baram. In addition, the state will also build 4 more bridges for the benefit of our people, namely Muara Lasak Bridge Mukah, Batang Rambungan Bridge Lundu, Bintulu Jepak Bridge crossing Kuala Kemenak Bintulu, and Batang Lupa Bridge Samarahan. We do not know whether the federal will also partially finance this or not. But we give provision for it. Number 3, expanding coverage of clean treated water supply throughout the state. To address the water supply issues, the state government will continue to extend coverage of water supply, especially to the rural population. A sum of 190 million ringgit is proposed in 2019 for the implementation of various water supply projects, including 1. Water supply from Kota Samarahan to Subuyau Samarahan, pipeline from Ashakirin Reservoir to Nyaba Water Treatment Plant intake, program membaik pulih dan naik taraf sistem pengeluaran air negeri Sarawak, program retrofit and treatment plants and reservoir, Bau Lundu Sematan Regional Water Supply, program pipe renewal, upgrading of Berawan Water Treatment Plant, Terusan Regional Water Supply, and Dalat Water Supply Phase 2. 4. Strengthening agriculture development. The state aims to become a net exporter of agricultural produce and products to meet the demand of both the domestic and global markets. This vision could be achieved by transforming agriculture into a modern, competitive and sustainable sector capable of generating new innovative businesses and high-value employment opportunities. The agriculture sector needs to be modernized and commercialized through leverage on advanced technologies. A sum of 315 million is proposed in 2019, which among others provide for the following: venture capital program to strengthen the business model for the agriculture sector, crop industry development, which include establishment of permanent food production park at various divisions, agro park at Samarahan and Sarike, fertigation project in Muka, and crop development programs such as paddy, fruits, rubber, oil palm, vegetable and herbs. Rural development program, which include development of rural growth centers, inland fisheries, aquaculture, livestock and veterinary related projects, agriculture education and promotion, and mechanization and agricultural infrastructure. 5. Further development of industrial estate. In line with the state industrialization program, the state will continue to build infrastructure suitable for industries. For this purpose, a sum of 85.3 million is proposed for the implementation and completion of various industrial estates, among others, Demak Laut Industrial Park, Sematan Industrial Estate, Sri Aman Industrial Estate, Bau Industrial Estate, and Ratau Panjang Industrial Estate. In addition, the development of SMEs will remain a priority so as to achieve a more inclusive and balanced growth. Towards achieving this, a sum of 18.4 million ringgit is proposed for the implementation of various entrepreneurship programs and projects for SMEs, which include Samalaju SME Cluster and Anjung Usahawan in Lawas, Sunda, Terusan, and Gedong. 6. Providing affordable housing for the rakyat. In our continual effort to care for the well-being of our people, the state will continue to build quality and more affordable houses targeting at the lower income group. For 2019, a sum of 141 million ringgit is proposed for housing development, including financing of new and ongoing construction of 1,827 units of affordable houses under Rumah Mampu Milik RMM and Rumah Spektra Permata LSP. The implementation of RMM involved 7 locations as follows: Darul Hana in KUCHING, Ranggau Limbang, Kampung Datuk Baru Sibu, Kampung Bunga Rampai Bau, Beratok Serian, Kampung Tabuan Melayu and Kampung Tabuan Fuchau, and Kapit Baru Kapit. Under Rumah Spektra Permata ISP, 5 locations have been identified for the construction of affordable houses, that is Kemuyang Sibu, Lundu, Igan Muka, Tian Matu Muka, and Sematan. The 2019 development budget would also propose to allocate a sum of 270 million for the redevelopment of traditional villages, which include the following projects: Darul Hana Redevelopment Project, Kampung Redevelopment for Tabuan Melayu and Tabuan Fuchau, Kampung Serjikat Redevelopment, Projek Penempatan Kampung Sungai Berdaun KUCHING, sand filling and infrastructure work at Kemuyang Sibu, and Kapit Baru Redevelopment Project. A further sum of 63.4 million would also be set aside for the implementation of 25 Kampung Extension or residential scheme throughout the state to provide residential lots complete with the necessary infrastructure and utility services. This effort is aimed at raising the living standard of our rural community. Datuk Yang Dipertua, we have also planned for the 3 development agencies in Rekoda. That is the Upper Rural Development Agency, Upper Ulu Rajang Development Agency, ODA, which is given 1.5 billion ringgit. High Development Agency in the Baram area, 1.5 billion ringgit, and the North Development Agency, northern part of Sarawak, another 1.5 billion ringgit. Of course, all state fund. 7. Enhancing human capital development and government service delivery. The state government will continue with its effort to train a pool of competent workers and professionals who are equipped with knowledge, skills, and other qualities that meet the demands of the job market. Priority will continue to be given in the technical and vocational education. In this connection, a sum of 112 million ringgit is proposed to implement various projects, including Centers of Technical Excellence, CENTEX in Lundu and Lawas, as well as Pusat Pembangunan Kemahiran Sarawak, PPKS in Muka. The 2019 budget also proposed to allocate 120 million for the construction and renovation of government offices and quarters, so as to provide conducive working environment for the civil service. A conducive working environment will enhance productivity and government service delivery. 8. Rebuilding and upgrading of dilapidated schools. There are a total of 1,020 dilapidated schools in the state, of which 415 are considered critically dilapidated. Education is a subject under the purview and responsibility of the federal government, as enshrined in the federal constitution, but the current state of schools, particularly those in the rural schools, require our immediate attention. In fact, the previous federal government had, in its 2018 budget, approved 1 billion ringgit special allocation for the repair and upgrading of the dilapidated school. The new federal government ought to fulfill this obligation by providing the funding as approved. In fact, the amount is hardly sufficient. We need much more than 1 billion to repair, replace, and rebuild all the critically dilapidated schools in the state. Unfortunately, the 2019 federal budget did not indicate any allocation for dilapidated schools in Sarawak. Datuk Speaker, it is disheartening to see our children have long been suffering from such poor quality conditions and are forced to study in such inferior learning environment. The state has to step in to facilitate the development of schools in Sarawak using state fund, and will continue to do so next year. A sum of 81.7 million is proposed to be allocated to rebuild, repair, and upgrade the dilapidated school, including providing water and electricity supplies. Though the state government has offered a loan of 1 billion through a letter addressed to the Minister of Finance, until today I haven't got the reply. Datuk Speaker, the development allocation as proposed in our 2019 state budget shows only a partial picture of the overall public sector expenditure in the state, as programs and projects that are funded directly by the federal government and through alternative funding are not reflected in the state budget proposal as highlighted. The state is committed to spend about 11 billion ringgit in the next 2 years for the implementation of various projects, including water and electricity supplies, as well as road networks. New financial model. The state is leveraging on a new financial model, namely via the Development Bank of Sarawak, as well as opportunity in the capital market to source for competitive alternative funding. Utilization of alternative fund raised through the BOS and capital market would allow the state to manage its cash flow more efficiently, at the same time ensuring financial capacity in the state. As programs and projects that are funded directly by the federal government and through alternative funding are not reflected in the state budget proposal as highlighted. The state is committed to spend about 11 billion ringgit in the next 2 years for the implementation of various projects, including water and electricity supplies, as well as road networks. New financial model. The state is leveraging on a new financial model, namely via the Development Bank of Sarawak, as well as opportunity in the capital market to source for competitive alternative funding. Utilization of alternative fund raised through the BOS and capital market would allow the state to manage its cash flow more efficiently, at the same time ensuring financial capacity to take care of its other responsibilities of the state. The ability to leverage on these alternative sources of funding would ensure funds are readily available to support the development momentum of the state. In this way, the state could have the fiscal flexibility in strategizing its development agenda and managing its cash flow to meet its expenditure, at the same time building adequate reserve to meet any economic uncertainties and for a sustainable future. Datuk Ahmad Speaker, walkabout projects. To date, a total of 282 walkabout projects costing 6.3 billion have been approved for implementation. Most of these projects are roads and bridges, water and electricity supplies, housing and social amenities. This project aims at providing better public facilities and amenities, particularly to the rural economy. Out of the 282 approved projects, 257 projects are in the pre-contract stage, 20 projects are under construction, and 5 projects have been completed. Most of these projects are scheduled for completion by the end of 2020. Rural transformation projects. To date, a total sum of 1.5 billion has been allocated to various implementing agencies to implement 4,812 projects throughout Sarawak. As at 31st August 2018, 2,496 projects, or 52%, had been completed, while the remaining 2,316 projects, or 48%, are still at various stages of implementation. Datuk Ahmad Speaker, federal funding. During the tabling of the federal midterm review of the 11th Master Plan 2016-20, the Prime Minister, Yang Amat Berhormat Tun Dr. Mahathir Mohamad, has presented the new direction of the federal government, which among others include the reduction of development expenditure ceiling from original allocation of 260 billion to 220 billion to consolidate its fiscal position. However, despite the reduction in the development expenditure ceiling, he has given assurance that priority will be given to development in Sarawak and Sabah to spur both states to higher economic growth. In accelerating the development in Sarawak and Sabah, federal government will undertake the steps as follows. 1. Intensifying economic growth and development planning. 2. Improving infrastructure for better connectivity. 3. Expanding access to basic infrastructure, amenities and services. 4, increasing employment opportunity, and 5, enhancing the development of customary land. We call upon the federal government to fulfill these promises made. The state of Sarawak has contributed significantly to the national economic growth, as well as to the federal government coffer in terms of collection of taxes and revenue from oil and gas. It is only fair that the federal government provide a more equitable allocation to the state of Sarawak, particularly for development purposes. This is imperative so that all Sarawakians can enjoy the same quality of life as our counterpart and to narrow its development gap with that of Peninsular Malaysia. The allocation for Sarawak of 4.346 billion ringgit as announced in the 2019 federal budget is only 7.94% of the total development budget, as compared to 4.336 billion in 2018, which was 9.42% of the total development budget. The 2019 federal budget does not reflect a fair and equitable allocation to the state of Sarawak. Despite the promise made by the State Pakatan Harapan to make sure that the state of Sarawak and Sabah will get 30% of the federal allocation. Datuk Ahmad Speaker. Okay. Datuk Ahmad Speaker. Project delivery excellence and good governance. We have set up the State Development Coordination Committee to monitor the progress of all high-impact infrastructure and amenity projects to ensure speedy and timely project implementation, and most importantly, exercising financial probity and in compliance with practices of good governance. Datuk Ahmad Speaker, in conclusion, the 2019 budget will mark the first time of significant increase in revenue exceeding 10 billion ringgit. The expected revenue for next year is almost double the revenue of this year. The bold measure by the state to impose sales tax effective 1st January 2019 on petroleum products at the rate of 5% is expected to contribute significantly to the state revenue. With a good level of revenue, we shall be able to support our expenditure. Datuk Ahmad Speaker, I would like to reiterate that the imposition of sales tax on petroleum products is our right as enshrined in the Federal Constitution. We will continue with our effort to enhance and diversify the state revenue base with the provision of the law to enable us to accelerate the development of the state towards achieving our vision in making Sarawak a high-income state by 2030. The new financial model would not allow the state to exercise financial flexibility in managing our cash flow, but also provide ready funding for the implementation of strategic projects that would expedite economic progress and economic growth of the state. Where the state is focusing on the pursuit of its development objectives towards achieving greater economic progress for the benefit of our rakyat, we should not lose sight of the national political development, key global economic headwind, as well as geopolitical tension that would have an impact on the state economy. I would therefore like to assure this August House that the state GPS government will continue to manage our financial resources prudently and to ensure that the culture of financial discipline is embedded at all levels for the state long-term financial sustainability and financial autonomy. Datuk Ahmad Speaker, the destiny of Sarawak can only be determined by Sarawakian. Within the framework of the state constitution, federal constitution, and the Malaysian agreement. With that spirit, I am certain that we can move forward with the unity of Sarawakian. Datuk Ahmad Speaker, dengan ini saya mohon mencadangkan agar rang undang-undang ini dibaca bagi kali yang kedua. Terima kasih.
Ketua Ahmad Speaker, saya menyokong.
Usul untuk merujuk resolusi anggaran perbelanjaan pembangunan bagi tahun 2019 kepada Jawatankuasa Pembekalan. Yang amat berhormat Ketua Menteri, Menteri Keuangan dan Perancangan Ekonomi.
Datuk Ahmad Speaker, I beg to move that the following resolution be referred to the Committee of Supply. That this Dewan resolve to approve the Development Estimate 2019 as contained in Command Paper number 11 of 2018, laid on the table on 5th November 2018. As presented in Command Paper number 11 of 2018, the total development expenditure for 2019 amounts to 9.073 million ringgit. Of the total sum, 9.073 million earmarked for development expenditure, while 8.813 million will be funded by the state, while 260 million ringgit will be financed by the federal government through reimbursable loans and grants. The sum of 9.073 million as proposed has been allocated on the basis of projected expenditure commitments and requirements for approved development activities during the year. The proposed allocation by sector for major programs are as follows. 3.690 million, 3,690 million is allocated for industrial and commercial programs, including investment in manufacturing, tourism and entrepreneur development. 2,545 million is allocated for social development and community services, including housing and resettlement scheme, sports and recreational facilities and rural transformation projects. 1,105 million is allocated for transport and communication, including roads, bridges, riverine infrastructure. 1,047 million ringgit is allocated for general administration, which include provision for various government buildings, administration of local authorities services, urban sewerage and waste management. 421 million is allocated for agricultural programs such as land development, drainage and irrigation, assistance to farmers, veterinary fisheries, agricultural research and forestry. 215 million ringgit is allocated for expansion and upgrading of various water supplies, mainly in the rural areas, including a sum of 11 million to KUCHING Water Board and 14 million to Cebu Water Board. 50 million is allocated for digital economy initiative. Datuk, Speaker, I beg to move.